Okay, so this year, for the refresher, what I have done is I've made your life a lot easier. I have included screenshots for each and every analysis, so you don't have to remember everything, like in terms of what to select. So everything is being done just to highlight what you have to select and how you run the analysis. Okay, and again, like even before we start with the analysis, what I'd like to say is whenever you are drafting your research questions or aims or objectives, try and have your research methodology in your mind, that the methodology always ties in with the research questions, aims and objectives. Because sometimes you see some dissertations where you see the objectives, they are hinting towards one direction, but when you go to the methodology or the analysis, they don't tie up together. Okay, and what we have done this year is that we've just introduced the options that are available to you. It doesn't mean you have to use everything. Okay, you have to use them wisely, because sometimes there may not be a need to use multiple regression. Okay, so there is no need to do that. But if you want to use it, make sure that to some extent, you don't have to say I'm going to do multiple regression in my objective, but to some extent you can highlight your research objectives where you're trying to assess the relationship between such and such variable and such an outcome. Okay, so always make sure that the methodology that you use in terms of qualitative, in terms of quantitative, it is to some extent reflected in your research objectives. Okay, and especially when you're writing your conclusions, get all your objectives, your aims into the conclusion section, and make sure to highlight to the reader whether your objectives were achieved, whether your research questions were answered or not. Just don't tell me, I have done this analysis, I did quantitative, I did qualitative, and that's it. That is not what I'm interested in. I want to see that your aims, your objectives, whether they have been achieved, whether you've been able to establish relationship between different variables or not. Okay, so just keep that in mind when you're doing your conclusion, and when you're writing your aims and objectives. Maybe sometimes when we start off, we may not be clear what we are or what we want to achieve through our research. But once you do your analysis, maybe it will give you a clear picture of what you've achieved. So you can go back and tweak them a little bit to reflect what has been got. Okay? But don't leave them as two separate entities. Research questions don't talk to the methodology that you have used. Okay? Try and make sure that you incorporate those aspects in your research, because when we read dissertations, that is what we are trying to look out for. Okay? First, what I'll do is I'll just go through the analysis one by one, okay, and then we'll do the analysis, right? So basically, to give you an introduction about what SPSS is all about. Now, the full form of SPSS is the Statistical Package for Social Sciences, and it is again a Windows-based system. You can use it for to perform various kinds of analysis. It is used in fields of psychology, sociology, management studies, behavioral sciences, and all. So it is also a very versatile software in terms of how much data it can handle. Okay, you can have hundreds and thousands of questionnaires, and it will efficiently analyze all those data. Okay, and SPSS is not only about the analysis that we have dealt with, like EFA, exploratory factor analysis, multiple regression, independent sample t-test, or even the Cronbach's alpha. It can perform a number of different analyses. It is very, very versatile. And the best book to learn SPSS, or if you have any doubts and if you want to go back and look up, then the best book would be this Discovering Statistics by Andy Field. He's made SPSS very, very simple in that, he's given very small examples just to explain how each and every analysis works. So if you're stuck at any time and if you want to refer, then this is the best book I would recommend. It's quite chunky, but the analysis that we have covered are done very well in this particular book. So you've got a CD also for that. You don't have to buy it, you can get it in the library as well. So the analysis that we would cover in this particular session would be descriptive statistics, which is basically summarizing the data that you have got. Then we will be doing an exploratory factor analysis, which is again nothing but it is a very simple process where you've got a number of variables and you're trying to create subsets in those in that variable. So you're trying to reduce the data, but you're also making sure that you're not losing a lot of information when you're trying to reduce the data. Okay. Then we have got reliability analysis. The coefficient that we use to measure reliability is called Cronbach's alpha. Basically, what you do in this analysis is that once you've got subsets from your exploratory factor analysis, you want to see how reliable that particular group or subset is. So you perform this reliability analysis. It gives you a coefficient which tells you whether the items actually reflect what they're supposed to measure. Okay, and then we've got multiple linear regression. Okay, here what we are trying to do in multiple linear regression is we are trying to predict about a particular dependent variable based on a number of independent aspects. Okay, now for that you need to understand what is a dependent variable and what is an independent variable. A dependent variable is something that is influenced by other aspects, okay, other factors. Like say you want to measure how much a person enjoys his job. Okay, so that is the dependent variable because it is based on number of factors. Like say the salary he gets, the number of working hours he spends working, maybe his academic qualifications. These are all considered to be independent variables because they influence how much a person enjoys his job. So we are actually in multiple linear regression, what we are trying to do is we are trying to accurately predict a particular outcome based on a number of independent variables that we have got. Okay, but here what we need to understand is that the relationship between the independent and the dependent variable has to follow a straight line. That's the reason we call it multiple linear regression. Okay, linear means the relationship between the independent and the dependent variable, it follows a straight line. Okay, and last is sample t-test. Here we do independent sample t-test. In this particular test, what we do is based on the mean scores that a particular group gives to a dependent variable, we are trying to predict the relationship, which particular group prefers the dependent variable more. Okay, we'll do that in detail. First to start off is descriptive statistics. Again, when you do your dissertations, start with this descriptive statistics. You can do it in SPSS or you can do it in even Excel. Okay, it just gives you. It does not give you a concrete view of the whole data, but it just helps you to summarize. Okay, so here you can do a number of analysis, like you can do means testing, you can do frequency distribution, or maybe between different groups you can compare the means. Okay, you can get a mean value for group A, group B, group C, something like that. Depends upon what you're trying to investigate. Maybe even what you can do is you can do a means testing, get a mean value for each and every variable that you have got, pick the top 5 factors and say why they emerge to be important. And you also, what you can do is you can pick the bottom 5 factors and say why they were deemed to be less important. Okay, it just gives you a broad idea, especially when you're marking a dissertation. When you start off, reading the quantitative analysis, you just want to get a general idea of what to expect from this data set that you have got. So it would be nice that you could do a means testing and then pick top 5 factors, discuss about them, maybe a page or a half page something, and bottom 5 factors, and maybe again a page or a half page on that. Okay. Now we'll move on to exploratory factor analysis. So just to give you a brief idea, exploratory factor analysis, what is it? It is a statistical technique that can be applied to a set of variables to identify subsets. So what happens here is you've got a number of variables. You've developed your questionnaires, so you would have got 30 odd questions or 40 odd questions with regards to the topic you're investigating. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to use this analysis to divide the variables that you have got into different subsets, okay, such that identify subsets of those variables in which the variables in the subset are correlated with each other. How are those subsets formed? the variables that are correlated with one another are in one subset, okay, but are relatively uncorrelated with variables in other subsets. Okay, what do we mean by correlation? Even before we start with this whole definition, correlationship is the extent or the degree to which variables fluctuate together. Okay, we say two variables are positively correlated when they both increase or decrease together, okay, based on the change that is introduced. We say the variables are negatively correlated when increase in one leads to decrease in the other. So that is negative correlation. Positive correlation when they both increase and they both decrease together. Okay, so what happens, what we do in EFA is we identify subsets, okay, such that the variables in one subset, they kind of group together and tell you about one particular concept. Okay, they are correlated, the variables in a subset are correlated, but they are relatively less uncorrelated with other variables. That is because, you're not measuring the same thing. Each group is different. It has to be distinct. So they have to be relatively uncorrelated. We are not saying they're totally uncorrelated because you have a broad topic and there will be a number of themes that will emerge. Those variables will slightly correlate. Okay. Again, the subsets that you get from your exploratory factor analysis are sometimes referred to as factors or dimensions. Okay, and another definition by Jairo is that EFA is a statistical approach involving finding a way of condensing the information contained in a number of original variables into smaller set of dimensions, factors, with a minimal loss of information. So this is the basic idea about exploratory factor analysis, that you're trying to condense the data, you're trying to reduce the data, but at the same time you're making sure that there is no loss of information. Okay? So, basically what factor analysis does is it takes a number of variables that you got from your questionnaire and it divides them into different groups or different subsets. So items in this group are talking about one particular concept. Items in this are talking about concept 2, 3, and 4. But they are relatively uncorrelated because this is one distinct group compared to the other. Okay, they're not talking about the same thing. That is what you want when you're doing your data analysis. So you have to be very careful when you're developing your questionnaire in terms of how you word each and every variable. Again, as I said, EFA is used for data reduction, where you've got a large amount of data where you reduce it into smaller factors, and they're also used to develop scales. This is for psychometric analysis. Okay, so there are 4 basic steps that you would perform in an EFA. So the first step is you compute a correlation matrix. Because EFA is all about correlation, the first thing that you do is you compute a correlation matrix. Only when your data passes this particular test, you can move on to further tests. Okay, so please don't ignore this. Like last time I saw when we were doing the exercise for research methods, like I saw people just directly going and talking about step 4 without even telling me anything about step 1. I don't know whether the data that you have collected is fit for analysis, whether it is fit for exploratory factor analysis. So the first step is all about making sure that your data is fit to conduct a factor analysis. Okay, so don't ignore these steps. You have to go step by step. So in step 1, we do 3 different analyses. One is your KMO test, one is your Bartlett test, and your anti-image. Only when your data satisfies all these 3 tests, you have to move on to the next one. Okay? Otherwise, there's no point doing any EFA. The second step is factor extraction. It is about extracting the most stable variables from your data. Okay? So, and then step 3 is rotation. In rotation, what you do is once you extract the stable factors from your stable variables from your data, you conduct a rotation which is through Varimax. What rotation does is it makes your data more interpretable, more understandable. Okay, when you see the rotated factor matrix, you will understand which are the variables that you're going to keep, which are the variables you're going to exclude from your analysis. Okay, and how they are grouped. The last step is just computing, getting the groups, naming them, and that's it. Like, once you get your groups, you name them and to discuss about them. Okay. To do that, what you have to do is you have to go, especially when you go to your SPSS file, you have this option for analyze, dimension reduction, and factor. Okay, I will do that. I have just kept it just in case, when you are doing your analysis, you may need it. And now, when you do your, when you open your Excel sheet and you set up everything, when you set up your data, there are 4 different steps. Descriptives is step 1, extraction is step 2, rotation is step 3. Okay, so these are all the 3 options that you will be going for, and I have also given you what are the options that you need to select. Okay, so in your descriptives, as I told you, you need to get initial solution. It actually produces tables for descriptive statistics. It will give you means, standard deviations, number of questionnaires. Okay, so it would be good if you could, just include that in your writer. Then you have correlation matrix, where we have selected KMO and Bartlett test, and then we have selected anti-image. Okay, those are the 3 steps. And in extraction, you will go for principal component extraction, and you go for a correlation matrix, and you go for unrotated factor solution and scree plot. And you will always select factors which have got eigenvalues. Eigenvalues tell how stable a particular variable is. Okay, eigenvalues over 1 are considered to be very stable. Anything below 1 is not stable, so you delete it from your analysis. And you also have got this option for iteration, which is 250. I have selected the value of 250. That is because how many times do you want the computer to run the analysis to get the optimal solution? Okay, so when you are doing your analysis, if you just basically go through this particular slide and select the options, you should be okay. But again, as I said, the data varies. There may be some impurities in your data, so not all the time it will work. But most of the time, if you select these options, you should be okay. Okay, and then again we have a rotation. The rotation option that we will be selecting, and the most sophisticated one, is Varimax. Okay, and you select a rotated solution, which is to produce your rotated component matrix. And last option is you exclude cases list-wise. In this particular option, what happens is if there is a particular questionnaire which has got missing values, then the system will kind of delete it from the analysis. It will not be included. Okay, but if you have some missing values, you can also replace them with mean. Okay, when you get your questionnaires, make sure that you scan through, and if there is any variables that don't have values, you can always ask the respondent if they would want to answer it again. Sometimes they don't want to answer, so you can leave it. But if you know them well enough, then you can ask them for that particular option. Otherwise, what happens is you tend to lose questionnaires for your analysis. Okay, and again, in this particular option, coefficient display format, you sort them by size. So the highest one is at the top, and it's all in descending order. And we will here in this particular option, we will select, we will suppress any particular variable which has got a factor loading below 0.5, then that will be suppressed. It will not be included in the analysis. Now, factor loadings are something which tell you about the importance of that particular variable in the analysis. Okay, and that's it. Once you select all these options, then you should be ready for analysis. Okay, so as I told you, the first step is about Bartlett test of sphericity, your KMO, and your anti-image. Okay, Bartlett test, again, it tests for correlationship among your variables. The null hypothesis that Bartlett test actually goes for is that there is no correlation among the variables. So what you want to have is a statistically significant Bartlett test, which will make you reject the null hypothesis. Okay, and KMO test, it also tells you whether the data that you have, whether it is adequate for EFA. Okay, so for a KMO you need to have values above 0.5. Okay, and the last one is your anti-image correlation matrix. When you select that anti-image option, you will have two tables. One is the anti-image covariance matrix and anti-image correlation matrix. So you have to select the second one, anti-image correlation matrix. Okay, and again you have to check all the variables on the diagonal element, and anything below 0.5 has to be deleted. Okay, now here is how you will get your results. This is your KMO and Bartlett test output. This is how it will come up on your in the output sheet. So what you have to make sure that the Kaiser-Meyer-Onkin measure for sampling adequacy has to be 0.5 and above. Anything below 0.5 means that you do not have enough number of responses to conduct the EFA. So there's no point going further. Okay, and the second one is your Bartlett test of sphericity. You need to have a significance of which is less than 0.05. In this case, it is 0.00, which means it is less than 0.05. Okay, so it is statistically significant, which means I can proceed. Okay, the next most important aspect is the correlation matrix. As I said, when you do that, when you select that particular option, you will get two tables. You don't select the first one, which is anti-image covariance matrix. You go for correlation matrix. Okay. And when you select this particular option, you have to go along the diagonal and check. You always have got an A on top here. So you go along the diagonal and check that each element on the diagonal has to be 0.5 or above. If it is below 0.5, it means that the correlation between the variables is not good enough, and this variable won't contribute much to your analysis. So what you have to do is, any variable which is less than 0.5, see the one which is the minimum, which is the smallest value, delete it, rerun the analysis, and see other, once you delete and rerun the analysis, your KMO shoots up, okay, and the other values also improve, okay. So again you check for all the variables and see the diagonal elements, all these are 0.5 and above. Because sometimes what happens is when you run the analysis, you may find many variables have a value less than 0.5. Okay, don't delete everything in one go. Select the smallest first, delete it, rerun the analysis. And if you find another, there are some more which have got values less than 0.5, then again select the smallest one, delete it, and rerun the analysis. Don't delete everything in one go. Okay. Whenever you do this anti-image correlation matrix, when you delete the variables, your KMO will improve a lot. Okay, and even some other variables also will improve here. And the next particular option that you do in EFA, step 2 is principal components. I will not go in greater detail about all the various options that you have got, but the two important options that you can select is principal components. Okay, but sometimes what happens is this particular aspect may not work for your data. Okay, in that case what you can do is you go for principal access factoring. Most of the time they produce similar results, but if PCE doesn't work, go for PAF. Okay, so try. I mean, it won't make much difference, but sometimes they work. If if that one doesn't work, go for this one. Or if you've tried this one, if this doesn't work, try that one. Okay. Another graphical representation for factor extraction is the scree plot. Okay, in scree plot, what you do is, here you have these groups which are, in this graph you have groups, the component number against the eigenvalues. So as I told you that any factors which have got eigenvalues above 1 are stable. So if you draw an imaginary line at eigenvalue 1, anything above 1, you retain it. Okay? Your results of your extraction will come up like this. It is the total variance your SPSS output. Okay, so as I told you that we have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 factors here in this particular data set which have got eigenvalues above 1. So only that much is retained. Anything below 1 is suppressed. You see, you don't see any factor extraction here. Okay, so what does this tell me about my model? Here if you go to cumulative the rotation sum of square loadings, here you have got a cumulative value of 63.843. What does this mean is that the 5 factors or the 5 groups that I have got from an exploratory factor analysis, it explains about 63.84 variance in the outcome. Okay, it is talking about like it, in this particular option what we were doing is we are trying to see the impact of risk reduction strategies. So, I was able to explain based on my model, I was able to explain 63.84% variance in risk reduction strategies. Okay, so the higher this value is, it's better. Like anything above 50% is good. If you are able to explain more than 50% variance in the topic that you are investigating, it shows that you've collected enough number of questionnaires and the data is reliable. And you can make some bold assertions about why you're able to get that much amount of variance. And this is the split plot. As I told you, anything above the eigenvalue of 1 is retained. Anything below is deleted. So if I see here, if I draw an imaginary line at eigenvalue 1, so we have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 factors that I'm going to retain for my analysis. And last, the third step would be rotation. As I told you, rotation makes it easier for you to interpret the results that you have got. Okay, and always go for Bailey-Max, which is an orthogonal rotation. Once you do your the rotation, you will get a table like this, which is the rotated component matrix. Okay, sometimes there are 2 tables, so make sure that you select this one. Okay, rotated component. So what it is doing is it has grouped the first 4 variables in group 1, the next one in group 2, then this is group 3, this is group 4, and this is group 5. So what we are trying to say is, out of the variables that we put into SPSS, we are able to form 5 groups. Okay, and if you see, they are all in descending orders. The one which is the highest, this value which is put against the variable is called the factor loading. Okay, the factor loading will tell you how important that variable is to that particular group. So a factor loading, the values range between 0 to 1. Anything closer to 1 is good. Okay, factor loadings above 0.5 should be fine. Like what we told SPSS when we were selecting the options, that any variable which has got a factor loading below 0.5 should be suppressed. So all that you have got is the variables which have got a factor loading above 0.5. Okay, anything between 0.5 to 0.99 is a good factor loading. Okay, so what I did is once, now this is how I interpret the results. Okay, so I have given color coding for each and every group that the SPSS has produced. So the first 4 concepts that when I read them, I feel they all hint towards a company-wide strategy for risk reduction. So I would name it as company-wide strategy. Okay. The second group, which has got 3 variables, is talking about proactive planning. You have to read those variables and try and understand, read all the variables and see in which direction they are heading. Okay. And the third particular group, when I read all those variables, I feel it's more about site-specific strategy to deal with risk. Okay. And the last particular option is risk ownership. Okay. This is group 4. But then when I go to the group 5, I see that there is one particular variable or item that I have got. It's trying to load itself on group 3 and also on group 5. It is trying to create confusion. It is saying that I belong to this group also and I belong to this group. So in that case, what you have to do is you have to check the factor loadings. If it loads very well onto any particular variable, any particular factor, then you keep it in that particular group. But here, the factor loading, here it is 0.55 and in this case it is 0.57. So it's trying to load equally on both variables, on both the factors. If you have cross loadings is what this particular variable is trying to cross load on two factors. Okay, you retain it if it is loading, say here it is 0.7, on this particular factor it is loading, the factor loading is 0.7 and in this it is 0.5. The difference is 0.2. Anything above 0.2 is fine. If the difference between the cross loadings is less than 0.2, then delete that variable from that particular group. And you cannot have a group with only one variable, so I will get rid of this particular variable as well. Okay, though it is having a very good factor loading, you just can't have one item in a whole group. Okay, so I would delete it from the analysis. Always remember, if you have cross loadings, if an item is trying to load on two different groups, check the factor loading, check the difference in factor loading. If it is anything below 0.2, then delete it off. Anything above 0.2, retain it in the group where the factor loading is higher. Okay? And that's about exploratory factor analysis. Now I'll just perform the analysis over again. I'll do it on EFA, so you can go through that. Now I have got a data set for EFA lecture. If you check your dissertation folder, I have put files on there. Like you can select the first one. I will perform the analysis, you can have a look at it. Okay. See, this is the Excel sheet which I have set up. Here we have got, this is the title of the topic, which is Impact of Strategies on Reduction and Mitigation of Risk on Construction Projects. Here I have got all my variables, okay? And then I have named them as V1, V2, V3, V4, V17. It's very important that you always name those variables, okay? And then I have set them up such that, you know, the questionnaire 1, 2, 3 till 50. I've got 50 questionnaires. And then I have entered all the numbers that I got from the questionnaires, okay? And this was measured on a scale of 1 to 5, which was where 1 is no impact and 5 is very high impact. Okay. What you can do is when you're doing the analysis, you can download this Excel sheet, delete all the variables that I have put, and you can input your data. Okay. So it's all set up. That's it. So I will go here. Now I need to open my SPSS file. What I'll do is I'll go to Start. I'll go to All Programs. I go to Departmental Acts. In that, we go to the School of Planning, Architecture and Civil Engineering. Here we go.
Oh, just here it is. And where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Go to Good Online.
Okay, we've got SPSS. If you just type in, it will come up. SPSS IBM Statistics 20.
Oh, I don't have any dissertation yet because I'm just.
Okay, now when we enter into SPSS, we have two views. One is the variable view and one is the data view. Okay, first what we do is we go into the variable view and we have got a number of options here. One is the name, the type. They have introduced new with decimals. We don't have to worry much about this. The ones that we need to consider would be label,
No, I don't have.
values, listing, and what is the measure.
Because
sometimes it works, but I don't know what's wrong with this computer. It's not working on this particular computer. Now I have put the label here. These are all the variables. Now what I'll do is I'll go to my Excel sheet back, and then I'll also copy this variable numbers. Okay, it's very important that you name all those variables as V1, V2, or X1, X2, whatever. Okay, I will select that, Control C. I'll go to SPSS and then select the first one, and I say paste. Okay, so these are all the variables. Okay, if you go back to the data view, you can see that you've got your variables here at the top. Okay, and here 1, 2, 3, 4 is the number of questionnaires that you have. Okay, now if you go back to the variable view, and in the values option, you will enter the scale that we have used to measure. Okay, in this particular option, see here is the scale. I have just written it down, where 1 is no impact, low impact, moderate impact, high impact, and very high impact. Okay, so what I do is I go to the value and I type in 1. So label would be no impact, because 1 in my scale means no impact, and I say add. I go to 2 and I say low impact. Low impact, and I say add. I go to 3 and I say moderate impact, and I say add. I go to 4, I type high impact, and I say add, and then 5, very high impact, and I say add. This is the scale that I have used for my analysis. Now if there is any mistake in the spelling, if you select this option, it will tell you if there are any errors or not. Okay, and then I say okay. If you want to remove any variable, you can select that particular variable and select the remove tab. Okay, and then it will be deleted. Okay, once I have everything ready, I will say okay. Okay, now this is because I have used the same scale. I will say copy. I'll go down. I'll select all the options and I say paste. So it will copy and paste. You don't have to do it individually. Right? Missing values. See, if you have any missing values in your questionnaires, what you can do is you can say discrete missing values option. You can select that, and you can type in a rare number. Now, because it is a scale of 1 to 5, I will say 999. 999 will indicate any missing number. So you put that value in your Excel. Say if you have any particular variable that you have a missing value, you just can type 999 and the SPSS will pick it up as a missing value. Okay, but in this case I don't have any missing values, so I'll just say no missing value, right? And I say okay.
Which box did you type that into?
Yeah, if you go to the missing value column, okay, and then you select this option, okay, and then you have this, the first option is no missing values, if you don't have. But if you have, you select the discrete missing values option, and then you type in here 999, yeah, and then select OK. But also make sure that when you have your Excel sheet, right, in that also you mention where there is a missing value, you just type in 999. Okay. Okay, that's it. So we've got most of them sorted. Columns, how many columns you want, you don't have to worry about it. You can align it to left, right, center, whatever. Now we've got this options here for measure. Okay, we've got scale, ordinal, and nominal. In this particular option, we're going for scale because we have used a 5-point Likert scale. Okay, low impact to very high impact. Like say, you can use this option for ordinal variables when you're trying to specify order. Like say you're measuring variables variables like their job titles or something, from lecturer to professor to assistant professor to reader or something, where you're actually specifying the order. Okay. Nominal variables are like, you use it when you're trying to categorize, like say age or gender or something like that. For those options, you use nominal scales. If you're using a Likert scale, 5-point scale, 10-point scale, or even a 7-point scale, you always go for the scale option. Okay. So you can just copy this, select it, and say paste. So everything is done to scale. Yes, guys? Fine?
They only has two actions, just the ordinal and non.
Yeah, but once you put in the values, it will give you the scale option as well. Okay? And that's it. Okay? Now what I will do is, this is all about variable view. We have set up the variable view. Okay? Is everything okay, guys? Have you followed so far? Any questions? Shall I move on to the data view? Just to enter data. Then it's just a few clicks and then that's it. We have our output with us. Okay. Now, the next thing that we need to do is we have to enter data into our data view. Okay. Now, what I will do is I will go to my Excel sheet. Now, what you see here is I have got my variables on the left hand side, and then we have got questionnaires on the top and the variables on the horizontal axis and the questionnaires on the vertical axis. Now, if you see your data view window, then you will see that we have got the variables on the horizontal axis and the questionnaires on the vertical axis. So what I have to do is I have to convert this particular thing. What I'll do is I'll select this. I'll select all the 50 questionnaires and the variables, and I say copy. I will go to a next sheet and I'll select one particular grid, and then I say paste special transpose, and I say OK. And now what you see is all this particular option is compatible with my SPSS sheet. Here I have got my variables on the horizontal axis and the questionnaires are on the vertical axis. Do you understand? All you have to do is go to paste special, select that option, and you have this option here at the bottom which is called transpose. Okay, if you select that option, it will paste. Right? And I have got the data ready. Now what I will do is I will just select the questionnaire responses. I'll select all the questionnaire responses. Okay, and I say copy. Okay, I've just selected, I've not selected the variables or the number of questionnaires. I've just selected the numerics. Okay, I say copy. I go to the data view in the SPSS file, and then I say paste. Okay, so all of them have been pasted. Do you see? That's it. Is it fine, guys? Yeah? Yeah. If you've got your data in Google Docs, then you don't have to transpose because it would have set up the way SPSS already wants. So you don't have to transpose. Okay? Now we'll go on to the analysis. Now I go to analyze, this particular option here, analyze. I scroll down. I go to this option of dimension reduction. Okay? And then I select the first option of factor. So you go to analyze, you go to dimension reduction, and you go to factor. You don't need to write it down. I have mentioned that in the lecture notes. Okay? So just select this option of factor. Okay? So this window comes up. Now I want to enter all these variables that I have got into SPSS to perform the analysis. So what I do is I select the first option, the first variable. I hold the shift key. I scroll down and I select the last one. Okay? It means all the variables have been selected. option once. So in analyze, keep the default option, which is correlation matrix. In display, I want to see an unrotated factor solution, and I also want my scree plot. Okay, so select both the options in display. In extract, I want to select factors which have got eigenvalues above 1. Okay, because as I told you previously, any factors with eigenvalues above 1 are quite stable. And then we've got this option of maximum iterations for convergence. Okay, here I will select, I will put in the value of 250 because I want the computer to run as many times as possible, like 250 times to get the optimal solution for my results. Okay, sometimes what happens, the computer comes up with the best result in 6 iterations or 10 iterations, but try to keep this limit as high as possible. Okay, and then I select continue. So correlation matrix in analyze, display, we select unrotated factor solution, scree plot, extraction is based on eigenvalues, and I say continue. Then we go for the third option of rotation, where we go for Varimax rotation. Again, rotated factor solution, and iterations will keep it at 250, and say continue. We don't do anything with scores, just leave it the way it is. In options, what you do is exclude cases listwise. Means any questionnaire which has got a missing value will not be included in the analysis. Or you can replace it with mean. If there is any missing value, then SPSS will put in a mean value there, okay, based on the analysis it does. But sometimes when you replace it with mean values, the results tend to be overinflated. Okay, so try avoiding that option. But in case if the analysis is not working based on too many missing values, then you can include replace mean. Okay, then sort by size, and then suppress small coefficients. So we don't want any variable which has got a factor loading below 0.5. Okay, so just put in the value not 0.5, right? And then I select continue, and that's it. So you've selected everything. When you select this when you click on the OK button, you will get all your analysis. Okay, so the first analysis that I will check for would be the KMO and the Bartlett test. Okay, now here as you see, this is the KMO value, Kaiser-Meyer-Olkin measured for sampling adequacy. It is 0.512. It is above 0.5. Means I have got enough number of questionnaires to conduct the analysis. Has everybody got an output, or yeah? Any problem, guys? Shall I continue?
Yeah.
Then the second test that I will be looking for is the Bartlett test of sphericity. As if you see the significance value, if you see the third aspect, we have got a chi-square here. We have got the degrees of freedom, and we have got a significance value. So this chi-square value is statistically significant. Means, what does it mean? Here we are saying that we have to reject the null hypothesis, which means that there is correlationship between at least more than one variable. Okay, there is correlation between variables, so we can reject the null hypothesis that there is no correlation between the variables. So based on a statistically significant Bartlett test value, we can say that there are more correlations, and it is not restricted to 0. Okay, and then we have got the anti-image matrix. If you see, the first aspect of this table is called anti-image covariance. We don't go for this table. If we just scroll down, we have got anti-image correlation matrix. So this is the one we need to look for. Okay. Okay. So what I do is, we have to take this particular table and just look for the values here which have got A here. Okay. That is A is for sampling adequacy. Now, if you just check here, the second particular variable has got a value of 0.278. Can anybody say what should be the value here? 0.5. Anything below 0.5 means the correlations are not good enough and they have to be deleted. Okay, so I won't delete it straight away. I'll just go and check how many variables are below 0.5. So this is one which 0.5, then this is fine. This option is fine. This is again below 0.5, not okay. This is fine. This is again below 0.5. Then this is fine, this particular variable. This particular variable is fine above 0.5. This is fine. This particular variable is not okay. This is fine. This is not okay. So this is fine, not okay. Even this is not okay. And the last one is fine. So there are a number of variables that are below 0.5. So what I do is I select the least, the one which has got the lowest value. So that is V2, which is contractual transfer of risk to protect your company against insurance. So what I do is first I'll select that particular, so that is V2. Okay. So I just go select that particular variable and hit the delete key. And that's it gone. So again I go to analyze, I go to dimension reduction, I go to factor, and these options will all be selected. So you don't need to select the options over again. Okay, and then select OK. So what you see is in your output, you have the first output where the first time you perform the analysis. The second option, this is the second one, is the output that you've got for the second time. Now you can see that KMO value has improved. It was 0.512, now it is 0.599, close to 0.6. Now if I go and check this Bartlett test is also the same. And if I go to the anti-image correlation matrix table, I'll again check whether the values have improved or not. The first one fine, second one is fine, third is fine. The fourth is fine, this is fine, 0.6. This particular thing is not okay, it is 0.456. But I'll go and check the other ones as well. This is fine, 0.7. 0.698 is fine. 0.593 is fine. See, we've got one more, 0.453, which is not okay. Then point. Okay, if I scroll down. This one is fine, this one is not okay. 0.683 is fine, 594 is fine, 702 is fine, 0.52 is okay, it's above 0.5. But we've got one more here which is 0.432, which is again below 0.5. This is the lowest one. So I will go and select that last but one. It's B16 is the lowest. So again I go back to my SPSS table, go to the variable view, and this is B16 is the variable that was causing the problem. So again I delete that particular option, go to analyze, dimension reduction, factor, and I say, because you've already selected the options, you don't need to redo it again, and I select OK. This is the third output. Now again I go to the if you check, the KMO value has significantly improved. It has become 0.631. Bartlett test is fine, is statistically significant. Now if you see the values here, 0.6 anti-image correlation table. This one is fine. The variables, these are all above 0.5, they're all fine. They're all fine here, 0.68, 0.578. You have to always check the elements on the diagonal. We have got one which is 0.442. 0.442. Here, got one particular option. Here, 0.68, 0.684, 0.78, 0.442. If I just check which one is that. B11 that is causing a problem. So I go back again to the SPSS main data file, go to select B11. I will delete that. I'll go to analyze. I will go to dimension reduction factor, and I select OK. And then we've got the fourth output. Let me check the KMO. KMO is 0.649, which has improved very well. Bartlett test is fine. Anti-image correlation, if you check the diagonal elements, they are all fine. They're all fine now. 0.7, 0.68, 0.613, 0.671, 678, 0.742, 0.59, 0.71. So all the elements, all the diagonal elements are below 0.5. So I'm okay to go with the other analysis.
See that's the fourth output now. Do you save the other outputs, or is it just the last one you need to keep for your?
You can keep only the last output, but what you have to do is you have to mention which are the variables that you deleted,
Right.
because I need to know why they were deleted. Okay.
Or that this one you could write in just the line and the analysis saying that factors were related due to the.
Yeah, once you discuss your KMO and your Bartlett test, you tell me this, and the EFA was performed over and over again for the anti-image correlation matrix, because such and such variables had values, the diagonal element values were below 0.5, and they were sequentially deleted from the analysis. What happens is, like, once you delete a particular variable, when you're doing anti-image correlation matrix, the second time you perform the analysis, the value of that would, of another variable which is below 0.5 would boost. So you just do it sequentially. Okay, and now you're fine. So the next table that you need to see is the total variance explained. Based on this analysis, it says that 5 factors have been extracted. Okay, they are eigen values above 1. Anything below 1 is suppressed. And then we have got, based on this particular model, we are able to explain around 64% variance in risk reduction strategies. Okay, so you need to include this particular table, the KMO table, the KMO and Bartlett test. Anti-image you don't need to have it, but if they are variables, you need to delete it, but highlight that in your write-up. Okay, the next table that you include is total variance. Put this in your write-up and say that this model was able to explain so much percent variance. Anything above 50% variance should be fine. Okay, and then screen plot is nothing but just a graphical representation. So you can have that screen plot, and if you draw, like in the slides I showed you, if you draw a line at 1, you know which factors to retain and which to delete. Okay, anything over the eigen values of 1, you can retain that. Okay, and then you can include screen plot in your write-up. You don't need to look into component matrix. The next important table that you have to see is your rotated component matrix. Okay, I was discussing earlier during the slides, this particular EFA has grouped 4 variables in group 1, group 2, 3 variables, 3 in group 4. Sorry, this is 3, this is 4, and then we have got group 5. But as I said, V7, which is trying to load on 2 different groups, is creating problems. And because the difference in the cross loading is less than 0.2, I will delete it. Say if this, if it was loading here as 0.7, and if it was loading on factor 3 at 0.5, the difference is 0.2. So I would retain it in the last group. Okay, and that's it. You have to include a rotated factor matrix into your write-up and tell me what would you name this as the factor 1. What would you name it? What would you name the second one? So on and so forth. And when you're doing your analysis, when you're doing your discussion, have those 4 groups and write about those groups. Because last time when I was reading the reports, it's like people just stopped at it. Once they did the rotated factor analysis, they said these were the group names that we had, and that was the end of it. No, you have to explain about all the 4 groups based on your quantitative analysis, based on your qualitative analysis, and even on your literature review, what you got to know more about these variables, how they explain that particular concept. Like, group 1 we called company-wide strategy. So what is company-wide strategy? Go and touch upon each and every variable in that group. Talk how it contributes towards risk reduction. Get data from literature review. Try and get quotes from the interviews. If people have told something about those particular concepts, then discuss them in your write-up. At least get all the groups, and in detail you try to explain about how they talk about the concept you're trying to investigate. Don't leave it at this particular point, because you've done so much analysis, you can't leave it like this. Okay? And that's it. These are the 4 main tables: the KMO, the total variance explained, the screen plot, and the rotated component matrix that you have to include in your item. Okay, if you're doing an EFA. Is that clear, guys? Yeah? Can I start with the next one? I'll do Cronbach's alpha, and then we'll take a 15-minute gap, and then we can start with multiple regression and